A key thing in learning is that you have to discover it for yourself. But the same also goes for organizations. We all have our individual learning paths. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And this video is about learning, but mostly also how organizations learn. You see, one of my best coaches once told me, let everybody go through their own learning path. You might know the tool that they need to use at the end that will really help them and that is the best in the field, but they are not ready yet to see why this is such an important tool, how to use it, why all the complexity is in there, because they don't understand the basics. So a practical application of this is that when somebody is new to a tool, to a way of thinking, to, for instance, lean, you start with the basic stuff that everybody can understand and that you build upon and build upon. And then when you have a bit of experience, you will run into limitations of a simple tool or a simple method. And people start asking, but how to solve this? How to use it a bit better? And at that moment, when they themselves start to ask, how can I get over the limitations? Then they are ready to learn the next step. And like this, step by step, everybody needs to make their own learning and understanding journey. Now it's the same for organizations. So when you want to implement Lean, Six Sigma, or any other methodology or culture in an organization, first you have to do the basics and make sure that almost everyone, at least a critical mass within the organization, understands and uses the basics of each of the pillars of your system, and that they start asking, but how can we use this a bit better? So for instance, when you want to work on autonomous maintenance, autonomous management by the operators of their own lines, stuff like that, you don't start with autonomous teams. Now, a good way to start then is, for instance, by 5S. And this is something that almost everybody can understand. It's not easy always to do, but it's understandable, and it creates a very good basis. It takes the first very needed learnings of autonomous management and implements them without needing the rest. And as soon as people see this and say, okay, the system is working, we're putting things in place, but we really need to get this continuous tagging and labeling going on everywhere. You go for tagging everywhere. You build up the system that everyone can really work in this, and that you make it a habit that everyone in the organization tells in a structured way which things are wrong, makes a tag, and also either your maintenance people, they take care of it because it's more of a technical thing, or it gets into one of the area owners, it gets into a system where we solve the small problem that anyone can flag. And after that, we move on to autonomous management, and even this, all of these steps, they are again built up out of baby steps. But when you have an organization that has never done 5S, that does not have any system in place for tagging, your maintenance department is not ready for it, your management structure is not ready for it, starting with autonomous teams is really asking for failure. Unless, of course, you take a lot of time in the first 1 or 2 steps of AM, which is basically this. But the same thing also happens for if you are doing management on the shop floor. If you immediately want to go for a very well organized process performance control, process confirmation, are we doing things correctly, checking new standards a couple of times, this is the ideal picture. But management teams are not ready for this. An organization cannot simply implement this. It is too much to understand. So the people will not use it in the correct way, and then you will not get the results, and then you will not get the motivation. On the other hand, if you first say, we first do Gamba rounds, you just go to the floor, look at what is happening, talk with operators, and make sure that there is time for this in your agenda, that you go and talk. This is a very good first step. It will draw out lots and lots of problems and things to solve. There will be action lists, there will be what are we going to do with all the information we get. But most importantly, it will get the conversation starting. And then the managers that are doing this, they will come back to you as a Lean Six Sigma facilitator, continuous improvement specialist, ask how can we do this in a more efficient way? How can we make sure that not everyone's going to the same place? How can we make sure that we don't have all the actions everywhere? We need to have some tools to make it more efficient. And then you go, we will design specific rounds and we'll plan who is going to which area and roughly what things are you taking into account. So safety rounds, hygiene rounds, technology rounds, stuff like that, where you specifically go to an area, and this builds on the idea of management being at the shop floor, going to the Gamba, but now we send them with a specific idea what to check so that we know that we can cover different things. And when we are ready to take the next step to really talk about new processes, changes, we're going into process control or process confirmation, where we make sure that basically everyone in the organization, specifically those that were doing improvement, so that changed standards, improvement teams, problem-solving teams, autonomous management teams, that they can tap into the system and ask these managers who are doing their rounds to check specific processes that have just been changed. So new work standards, check them a number of times, divided between different people who are going to check, so that everyone can get a feedback, can also see how it is going, and that we get a very strong culture of adapting new standards. Very strong, but also from experience, I know that when you start with the good tool, without having gently introduced the underlying ideas, it almost never works, because it's too difficult to understand and the people are not ready to really use it. But when you start with the basics and they understand what they're doing, they will start asking how to do it better, and they are ready for the next step. And we also have the same, for instance, with KPI management. So we take targets and KPIs. We go on to a daily meeting, which is the basic thing that really it's the heartbeat of your what will become performance control. And we have this basically for all the skills. There are different levels at which you want to implement them, because people are not ready for the top level. And this is also very important when you are changing an organization, building a culture, to really know that we should not implement world-class standards from the get-go, because people will not understand why they are doing it. They will not be ready to implement it, take a wrong experience and then let the whole system go, mostly because they didn't understand. Because we know, right, the world-class tools, they work, they are good. And yes, some tools fit better with some companies, but in general, they have been thought out. We have tens of years of experience with those tools. The tools work. But if you use a tool that you are not able to use, that you have not been trained by, that you don't understand, it will not work for you. And the same goes for a whole organization like one factory or like a small group of factories. What this also, it doesn't force, but it gives you some food for thought. If you are implementing world-class performance control, to get to this level is pretty difficult. It might be good to also balance this type of learning within your organization and know that if you are already at a pretty good KPI and meeting level, but you don't have any of this process control, Gamba walks, you don't have any of this organizational workplace control by the actual people doing the work, so autonomous maintenance, your 5S teams on the shop floor, it might be better for your organization to first develop in those other fields a bit, to get the basis going everywhere. It will require less investment and will give a better boost to your entire organization. And on a side note, if you're watching this, you are probably a Lean Six Sigma specialist, or at least somebody really working within continuous improvement. So it's probably also your task to make sure that for the tools that you are using, there is a basic version and an advanced version and a world-class version. So make sure that you have these light packages that may not be perfect. In fact, They are not perfect. You know that there is a world-class option. But what can you offer as a very simplified but not wrong version of any tool or method that you are trying to teach people as a good first step so that people get some early success and become hungry to learn more? And if you have some nice examples of how you took a world-class tool and made a sort of a leveling, I would love to read about it in the comments. And I'm also sure that the other viewers would love to hear your experience. How did you take one of those tools that we all know and make a simple version for it to get this learning journey really started for your colleagues? I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to hit that like button if you did, and subscribe to this channel if you want to have videos like these every week. And of course you can also drop me a comment to let me know what type of videos I should be making. Perhaps you want some more foundational videos? Just let me know. For now, I wish you the best of luck in your learning journey, and don't forget to enjoy that journey.